Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Moore, and I am the chair of the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being here tonight. Your presence reflects the importance of informed discussion and civic engagement in our community. A special thank you to our candidates for stepping forward to share their vision and ideas. To our audience, your interest and participation, to our dedicated volunteers who have helped make this event possible, and to our sponsors for their generous support. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the evening, Aaron Martin. He is the General Manager of the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce. I have a sinus infection, so this is very difficult. Give me a minute. Aaron brings a wealth of experience and a robust background in advocacy, agricultural management, and business startups to the role as our General Manager. With a proven track record in business development and a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities faced by both established and startup companies, Aaron is poised to lead the Chamber towards continued economic prosperity. Aaron is passionate about supporting local businesses and fostering economic growth within the community. As a local business owner himself, he understands the value of advocacy and support from local, provincial, and federal organizations. Aaron is committed to being a champion for other businesses in his role at the Chamber, driving initiatives that promote economic vitality and community engagement. With that, I'll turn it over to Aaron to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Natalie. I'd like to take a moment to thank some of our partners that helped make this event possible. So at the back of the room, we have Whiteman, who is capturing and live streaming this on YouTube for a broader audience. Thank you for helping to make this debate reach more voters so they can make an educated vote. Next, we have our moderator, Vancia Financial Group, and Tim Zegler. Wealth Management. Tim right here, he's sitting here at the front waiting for questions coming from the audience. Tim will make sure that these questions are focused on business and are within the scope of polite discourse. You may have seen question cards as you came in the door here. Those can be filled out and then raise your hand. Someone will come up and collect them. If you don't have them by any chance, feel free to raise your hand and someone will come and distribute them to you as well. They will then go to the moderator and then come up to us to go before the candidates themselves. Then at the front here, we have One Point Association of Realtors, which in my opinion have one of the most important jobs of the debate, which is keeping all the candidates on time. I'd also like to say thanks to Shannon Stewart, who I think is over near the door there, Ava Cappy, who is also somewhere around as well, all of our volunteers and our committees that helped to put this on together behind the scenes as well. Lastly, before things get underway, if you need the bathrooms, they are located just outside the door and just down the way. And then from here, we will be welcoming some of the candidates as well. Some of these questions that we will be starting off with will be coming from the Chamber of Commerce members, and then we'll be shifting into the questions that are asked by the audience themselves. We'll try to get as many questions as we can out there. Those that can't, though, we hope that we can field those to the candidates at a later point and they can answer them and they can be posted online as well. But time is a limiting factor, so we hope to get through as many as possible. With that, I would like to welcome from your left to the right, David McKay of the Liberal Party. Sorry. David Mackey, my apologies. John Nader of the Conservative Party. Kevin Kruskowicz of the NDP. And Wayne Baker of the People's Party of Canada. I'd just like to thank you all for taking the time to engage in this dialogue as well. I would now ask each candidate to have an opening remark. You'll have 1 minute to do so, and we will start here with David.
Hi, I'd like to thank the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event tonight. We live in strange times. This election is different. When you look at the world around you, what do you see? Do you see global market chaos? Do you see threats to a stable economy? And why is this happening? Why have we allowed a political system to reward some politicians who intentionally provoke us using slogans and gimmicks, which causes polarization? I believe this needs to stop. You and I both know that this nonsense is not good for the farms, the businesses, the people, and the families of Perth, Wellington. We need to elect politicians who bring a sense of Canadian calm and not chaos. Mark Carney is competent. Mark Carney is experienced. He knows the world and he knows Canada. I'm confident that you will agree with me that Mark Carney is the only leader who has a real plan that you and I can trust.
Thank you for that comment. And now we will go to John Nader.
Good evening. It's a great honor to be here, and a big thank you to the Stratford District Chamber of Commerce, to Aaron, to Shannon, to the entire team for putting together this important discussion here tonight. My name is John Nader, and I'm honored to be the Conservative candidate here in Perth, Wellington. Each election, I make one very simple but fundamental pledge, that I will work hard on behalf of every person in every community in every corner of Perth, Wellington. When you elect me, that's what you get. You get my hard work and dedication to these communities that I've been honored to serve. Over the past 9.5 years that I've served as your Member of Parliament, I've attended thousands of community events. I've attended meetings, stakeholder engagements, and roundtables thousands of times here in the community. And I do that because it's my opportunity to hear your concerns, hear your issues, hear your hopes, and take those back to Ottawa to better represent you in the House of Commons. On April 28th, I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Kevin Kruskovich.
Thank you. You know, for 60 years, the NDP has been a progressive voice of compassion for working Canadians. We have taken both Liberals and Conservatives to task for both overlooking our most vulnerable and used our small number of seats in Parliament to demand and enact change for the better for all Canadians, based on our Canadian values. Values like health, dental, pharma, and mental care that are accessible, comprehensive, and won't bankrupt you. A revamped EI program that cuts down wait times and pays you more when you need it most. National rent control and quality homes built sustainably by Canadians for Canadians, making sure no one falls through the cracks. Now more than ever is the time to keep Canada, Canada. Let's not give it away to for-profit healthcare and corporate polluters who demand more and more subsidies. Let's reinvest in us. Let's hang on to what we hold dear. Let's check in on our neighbors and help them when they need it. It's more than just the right thing to do. It's who we are. And on April 28th, I encourage you to vote for Canadian values by voting for the NDP. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And now we will turn it over to Wayne Baker.
Good evening. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce in Arthur, and I want to thank the Chamber for holding this. I believe in a country that respects the sovereignty of God, crafts its laws based on that respect, and allows its citizens unfettered freedom within those bounds. I believe in a country that values the nuclear family as its most precious and fragile institution. I believe in a country that encourages its youth to be industrious, prosperous, generous, and resilient. I believe in a country where justice is quickly and fairly applied to all without exemption. I believe in a country that manages its obligations without overburdening its citizens or its future generations. I believe in a country where its citizens are allowed to speak openly and freely without a fear of reprisal or penalty of any kind. I believe that country can be my country. I believe it can be our country, Canada. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments and for the remarks from all of the candidates here. We will now be shifting into questions that are posed from the Chamber of Commerce. I have 2 of them here, and then we'll be shifting into audience questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to this as well. Our first question is, do you support the construction of a Trans-Canada pipeline for oil into Quebec and the Maritimes? Please provide details to your answer. If you'd like.
So we're in very difficult times with respect to the north-south trade. We have to be building east-west, and we have to be building infrastructure through energy, through communications, through transportation in order for that trade to happen. As a federal jurisdiction, you cannot do a trade corridor by yourself. You have to work with the provinces. Mark Carney is for growth, and we will be an energy superpower, and we'll have to be working with the provinces in order to look for that opportunity.
Thank you. John?
So the short answer is yes. The longer answer, we will do it in a number of ways. First of all, we will get rid of Bill C-69, which currently prevents new pipelines from being built in Canada. Second, we would propose a national energy corridor, a corridor across the country where we can have pre-approval to build these important nation-building projects. We need to get Western resources to Eastern capacity, and beyond that, we need to get resources to Tidewater. We can do that through a pipeline, and we can also do that through enhancements to the ports. Port of Montreal, Port of Vancouver, and hopefully in the years to come, Churchill as well. We need to be able to use our resources for the benefit of all Canadians to grow our economy and make sure that Canada is self-reliant, self-sufficient, and that we are selling and making profits on our resources, selling our resources to the world who want our resources. We can help Europe, for example, get off of Russian oil by using our resources to help Europe.
Thank you. Kevin?
We can't go backwards. Anytime there's a bit of pressure, we hear a couple of the major parties leaning on oil. Obviously, we still need it, but we need to start weaning ourselves off of it and look into renewables. We're a party that believes in investing in a new green economy, not stepping backwards and stepping back into more fracking and more pipelines and more bulldozing of our indigenous communities. We are a party that believes in looking forward with new sustainable investments in our working community in renewable, clean energy. Thank you.
And Wayne?
Obviously, a pipeline is the way to go. We are a resource-rich country. We have resources that the world is in need of, primarily our oil and natural gas, but we also have other resources. We do need to bring pipelines to Tidewater on both shorelines, and as the technology permits, up into Churchill and Hudson Bay as well. Yes, we do need pipelines. We need to exploit what we have for resources and stop with this narrative about green energy until we can develop the technology to replace the carbon fuels that we so heavily depend on. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments on that question. Our next question is, how would your government work with provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to address housing issues and create mechanisms that support Canadians across the entire housing continuum? Anyone care to take that on? John?
Sure, absolutely. So first and foremost, we need to work with municipalities and work with all levels of government to get more housing built. Our parties proposed a couple of first initiatives to get that started. First of all, we'll take the GST off of new builds up to 1.3 million, saving about 50,000. Second, we will work with municipalities to cut development charges. So for each dollar that a municipality cuts their development charges, we will reimburse that to 50%. Again, and up to $50,000. So on a new build, we're looking at $100,000 to get more built. Second, we need to focus on what we can do to spur building. We've promised a building bonus to municipalities to pay for the important infrastructure if they increase the housing supply, increase building in municipalities. When I talk to municipal officials, one of the biggest challenges they face is capacity, wastewater, water capacity. We need to invest in the fundamentals to ensure that we have what's in place, the permanent mechanisms in place, so we can actually build. Water, wastewater being two of the biggest priorities.
Thank you, Kevin.
The NDP has a comprehensive plan, a $16 billion national housing strategy. It involves Canadian Homes Transfer Fund and a Communities First Fund. What it is directed funding to municipalities and provinces And what it will require is, will reward cities, that build quickly and legalize more multi-unit homes, prioritizing homes that are near transit. We want to build up density in our communities. We want to speed up permits and approvals so homes can get built faster. And we want to make sure that municipalities are capping development charges. We want to work with them to start lowering those developmental charges so developers can build homes more inexpensively and faster. And we also want to use viable federal land as a government to build 100,000 rental units by 2030. We think it's important that we have, I'm sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you. And Wayne?
We're in a situation right now where there's a competition between housing and farmland, and especially in Perth County and Perth Wellington. There's a very strong competition, and the temptation to develop the farmland and create the housing to alleviate the pressure is very real. I think that we should propose developing marginal land that isn't suitable for farming, whether it be within Perth Wellington, or encourage a migration further north to lands that are more, maybe less easily developed, but we develop the technology to develop them and allow young families to build on their own homes on their own land and get away from this high density nonsense. There's a lot of social issues with it.
That is time. Thank you for those comments on that question. Oh, sorry. Terribly sorry, David.
Mark Carney has a plan to double the pace of construction to almost 500,000 homes a year. That is the most since World War II. And how do we do this? There's two parts to the plan. First of all, right now there's a gap between social housing and market-priced houses. For below-market housing, we need to have investments by the government. The government will act as a developer and build affordable housing at scale, including on public lands. For the housing market, for housing-priced market-priced housing, we need to use private capital, we need to cut the red tape, and we need to lower the cost of home building.
Perfect, thank you for that. Our next question is, please explain why a government under your party's leadership is best equipped to promote our economy in the face of economic uncertainty. And we'll start with Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. We believe in reinvesting in our people. We've always been a party that has started at the foundation with our workforce, with our people. We believe the reinvestment starts there. It starts with a retrofit plan that we have that works with the climate, but what it will do, if I'm speaking about just the economy, is it will bring the opportunity to train a whole workforce of skilled labor. We can increase our skilled labor force, which does entice industry. Instead of subsidizing large corporations to come in and take care of that, we want to build from the bottom up. We want to work in a clean and sustainable way with our workforce, with strong union jobs and good pay. That's where we begin with the NDP.
Thank you. Wayne?
As Canadians, we've always punched above our weight. We've always gone above and beyond what the rest of the world has done. And what we need to do to strengthen our economy right now is to insist that our government step out of the way and let individuals and let businesses and let corporations step up and take the burden on and grow our economy. And that's really what we need to do, get the government out of the way and encourage individual entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
So I started off by saying we live in strange times. We have some problems south of the border. North-south trade is not working right now. We need to build an east-west trade corridor, and the Mark Carney government will have a $5 billion plan to build this trade corridor. We need to invest and build Canadian infrastructure that will help diversify our trade partners, create good jobs, and drive economic growth. Something that's important to Perth Wellington is the automotive industry. Mark Carney has a plan that protects businesses and the auto industry by investing $2 billion to build a fortified Canadian supply chain from raw materials to finished vehicles.
Thank you. John?
So we can't control what happens south of the border, but we can make sure that we have a strong Canadian domestic economy. So we need to promote reinvestment in Canada. One of two ways we can do that. First, we are proposing a TFSA top-up, an extra $5,000 annually if it's reinvested in Canadian business, Canadian entities. Second, we are proposing a deferral of capital gains. So when a family sells a business, or when a farmer sells a farm, or when there's a business transfer, you can defer those capital gains if the profits are reinvested here in Canada in Canadian businesses. Let's promote Canada. Second, we need to be our own biggest market. Every year we leave between 60 billion and 200 billion of GDP growth on the table because we are not trading among provinces. In 2017-2018, I was the opposition critic for internal trade. At the time, the government negotiated a Canadian free trade agreement that was 300 pages long. Half of that was exceptions. Not acceptable in a unified country. I introduced a motion at the time to scrap those exceptions. Obviously, it didn't pass, but now is the time to do that.
Thank you for those comments. Our next question is, under your government leadership, what does freedom look like to you? Wayne, we'll start with you.
Freedom, that's a very interesting question. What freedom looks like to me is a society where we respect our neighbor's liberty, and we hold our neighbor's liberty to a higher esteem than that of our own. What this does is it creates an environment of trust and an environment of the trust is a foundation of our whole society. Without it, we have nothing. And if I can trust my neighbor and they can trust me, then we have a functioning society. So that's really the core foundation of our freedom. So thank you.
Thank you. David?
Canadian freedom starts with the Canadian Charter of Rights. We need to have politicians who respect the Canadian Charter of Rights and not cause polarization. When I was younger in the 70s and 80s, I was observed that Canadian politicians were Canadians first, and then they did the partisan politics. Right now, we don't have that, and we need to get back to freedom that is shared by everyone, and we need to be able to agree to disagree and still respect each other.
Thank you. John?
In Arthur, Ontario, it's known as Canada's most patriotic village. There's a beautiful billboard there. It's a painting, and it's of a World War II veteran, and it says, "Remember, freedom isn't free." And it's a reminder that the freedoms we enjoy as Canadians are because of the hard work and the sacrifice of the generations that went before us, those who served our country in uniform and those who continue to serve our country in uniform each and every day. We as Canadians owe a debt of gratitude to those generations that we can never fully repay, who quite literally put their lives on the line so that we as Canadians enjoy the rights and freedoms to live our lives here in Canada in a peaceful country. So first and foremost, let's thank those who've served our country, and let's continue to honor their sacrifice.
Perfect. And Kevin?
I think it's naive to think that it's a level playing field. I think we are judged on how we treat and take care of our most vulnerable. There's an American philosopher named Popper who spoke about it's the tolerance paradox. To have a tolerant society, we must be intolerant of intolerance. So I believe that freedom also looks like being vigilant and taking care of marginalized communities, supporting them where we can financially, emotionally, whatever we can do. So freedom isn't just something that you say, well, we're all free, so good luck to you. No, there are marginalized communities that need more, and they need our help, and they need our support. And that's always been the basis of how I've approached my life and how the NDP sees freedom. Thank you.
And our next question is, what does your party plan to do to reach the target of 50% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030? David?
We have already started working on climate action that is supported by the population by removing the carbon tax on small polluters, but we need to make sure that we go after the large polluters and that we need to make sure that they still pay. We need to improve carbon credits for the large polluters, and we need to add incentives to the small polluters to decrease the carbon footprint, and we need to give them more options.
John?
Our party believes we can do this through technology and not taxes. We are proposing to increase the credits and the investment credits for clean manufacturing and clean technology. That's the first thing. Second of all, let's actually use the resources that are already out there. Here in our community, farmers and farm families are already doing the hard work to actually be more sustainable. And they're doing it on their own, and they're not getting credit for the work that they have been doing quite literally for decades. If you look at the statistics for the agriculture community, they on their own have lowered their intensity, they have increased their sustainability, but they don't get credit for it when the government comes calling. And then thirdly, let's actually plant trees. The Auditor General reviewed the so-called 2 billion tree program, and you know what the Auditor General found? She found there was actually no requirement that the trees stay in the ground. So she found that I kid you not, she found that the trees that were planted were actually not required to stay in the ground. So when we're actually talking about planting trees, let's take the Wellington County approach, which is the largest tree planting program in North America.
Time. Kevin?
I don't understand sort of what's being said here. We just had two parties talk about increasing pipelines to every coast, leaning on oil, fracking for natural gas, more oil, more gas. That's our industry. But also, we're going to hit 50%. I don't know how it's possible. We have a party that will completely abandon any sort of care of the climate. It's been said. We're going to pull subsidies, $18 billion worth of subsidies off of the oil and gas companies. We're going to keep an industrial carbon tax, not a consumer carbon tax. It's not on the shoulders of farmers and businesses to take care of this. It's the government. The government should regulate. The government should invest in clean, renewable energy, not lean on oil, and then turn around and say, let's plant some trees. Trees aren't going to do it. We've had enough of that lip service. We really have. I don't want to get too fired up, but I just can't believe that we heard about investment in pipelines, but also we really care about the planet.
And Wayne?
I care about the planet, and I think we should invest in pipelines. 95% of the greenhouse effect is caused by a gas that we have absolutely no control over. That's water vapor. That means that carbon is affecting less than 5% of our greenhouse effect of our planet. Let's get real here. Like Mr. Kruchik is referring to trillions of dollars of investment, and we're $1 trillion in debt now. If we're going to realistically look at the investments Mr. Kruchik is talking about, we're going to be looking at over $300,000 per household in this country. I don't think that's a realistic option. Thank you.
And our next question is, considering global and national issues and stress on Canadians, what is your party doing to assist the civil society in our riding and nationwide? Example would be a library or the arts. John?
So we are pretty lucky to live in the community that we do live in, where we have some of the greatest tourism attractions in the world, whether it's the Stratford Festival, Stratford Summer Music, Drayton Entertainment, and a ton of new and developing agritourism programs. So let's focus on what we have and sell it to the world. I think one of the things that we as Canadians need to be doing is looking in our own backyards when we're promoting tourism. Let's look how we can attract new Canadians from coast to coast to coast to come to Southern Ontario, to come to our communities and enjoy the attractions we have. We are going to face some real challenges from cross-border travel in the months and probably years to come. So let's make Canada the #1 destination for Canadians going forward.
Kevin?
I think it's very important that we invest in our culture and who we are. We can't do that if we cut the CBC. We can't do that if we start to sort of dismantle how we identify ourselves. I grew up in southern Alberta. I only knew about Newfoundland through the CBC, but I have a real sense of what Newfoundland is because we had a national cultural institution that taught us about each other. and unified us. We're far too siloed, we're far too individual. The more we privatize, the more we sell it off to international corporations, the more we lose who we are. So it's a reinvestment in us, it's a reinvestment in the arts. The NDP has always been a proponent of the arts and culture, and we believe in actually putting our money where our mouth is, not just saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if these things existed, and then continue to cut them.
Wayne?
I grew up with the CBC. I was a very firm advocate for the CBC until it became a propaganda tool for the government. I no longer support the CBC, and as long as it remains a propaganda tool for the government, I do not intend to support the CBC. As far as assisting our civil society, I think that we need to continue to keep churches as tax-free, with their tax-free status. I know there's wind that might be removed. I think we need to encourage our church and extracurricular support in the community, extra governmental support in the communities. Thank you.
David?
So I'm on the Stratford Public Library Board. I think that the library is an institution that everyone trusts, and we need to make sure that people trust it in the future. Librarians, I've learned, although I'm not a trained one, this is what I observe, they have superpowers. They are able to tell fiction from nonfiction. We need to make sure the politicians listen to the librarians. I also think it's important that libraries tell stories and that we tell Canadian stories and our local stories. The CBC is an institution that does tell Canadian stories for a long time in the past and for a long time to come in the future. It's about protecting our national identity, defending from the American threat that we make Canada strong. We need to protect our culture from the whims of politicians by enshrining into law the right for the CBC to exist without interference from politicians.
Next question is, our nation is under a lot of debt. Almost every party is promising tax cuts. How do you justify these cuts, and what services can we expect to lose? Kevin?
When we talk about tax cuts, the tax cuts we're talking about are tax cuts for working Canadians, raising the basic tax exemption to $19,500, taking the GST off of essentials like internet, heating bill, diapers, things that cost. We believe now is the time, and we're going to hear a lot about austerity and cutting, but we believe now is the time that we need to invest to stimulate. There will be a time when we can start to pull back, when we can be a bit more austere, but we believe that now is the time to build up, and we can't build up if we start cutting and slashing, especially because we all know that those slashes are going to come in the social program level. We're going to lose people. We want to talk about a civil society. If we don't take care of our most vulnerable, it's going to get out of control. So we believe that now is not the time for austerity, but now is a time for investment so we can care for our industry and care for our people and build it up so we're not buffeted by our neighbors to the south as much as we are now.
That is time.
Thank you.
Wayne?
Right off the bat, our country's committed to $21 billion to support the Ukraine. I think that needs to come off the table. I think that we need to get our own house in order before we start helping other countries. Otherwise, we're going to be in serious trouble ourselves. We're talking over $1 trillion. That's leaving a rotten legacy to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And we need to look in the mirror and we need to assess why we're there. We're a resource-rich country. We need to exploit our resources. Unfortunately, those resources won't be available for our grandchildren because we need to deal with the debt that we've run up as a society ourselves. We've encouraged a government that didn't think that balancing the budget was a necessity. Well, we're paying the piper now. Thank you.
David?
The answer to the question is one word. We need balance. We need to look at both sides of the equation. We need to look at the taxes and how we incentivize people to do the right behavior for a strong, growing economy. But we can't forget the important services, nor can we forget the need to invest in infrastructure for future generations, which will feed back into a growing economy. The best way to do that is to get the balance right and not focus on one side of the equation or the other.
John?
We can't invest in the priority of Canadians if we don't have our own fiscal house in order. This year alone, we are spending over $50 billion just on the interest on the debt, just on debt servicing charges. That's more than we spend annually on health care at the federal level. That's why we need to make sure that we have our fiscal house in order. How do we do that? We do that by being careful and by being clear of where we're going to pay for our priorities. During this campaign and in our platform, every time we've announced a new policy or a new program, we've also said how we're going to pay for it. We are being open, honest, and upfront with Canadians. If they want to know where we're spending money, we will also show them where that money is going to come from.
Our next question is, I'm finding little discussion on healthcare, which is in a crisis. What are the plans to improve services and quicken access to the services? Wayne?
We need to, excuse me, we need to train more doctors. We have the infrastructure, we just don't have the doctors, and there seems to be a gatekeeper on doctor training and training our healthcare professionals. We need to get those gatekeepers out of the way, and we need to get more doctors into the system. I think it's unfair that we bring doctors in as immigrants because the countries that they come from have less resources than we have, and we're exploiting those poorer countries with taking away the health professionals that they need for their own population. We just need to train more doctors, and there's ample individuals who want to be trained. They're just not able to get into medical school. Thank you.
David?
Mark Carney understands that healthcare in Canada is a right, whereas in the US, it's called big business. This fundamental right to healthcare will be protected by a Carney government. The way to do it is we need to reduce interprovincial barriers for mobility of medical professionals across provinces. I understand that this work has already started, but right now the governments are holding this up. We need to have leadership at the federal government to work with the provinces to reduce the barriers that are interfering with doctors and nurses from traveling across the provincial barriers in order to provide services to Canadians wherever they are.
John?
So first of all, we often talk about the brain drain. But right now, if you're a Canadian who is practicing globally, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse practitioner, now would be a wonderful time to come home. So first of all, let's encourage that. Second, we propose a Blue Seal standard across the country, which will allow a qualified doctor, nurse, who has training, whether it's internationally in a different province or in a different province, to take a test to prove their competency within 60 days of coming to Canada or changing provinces. We need to make sure that we have those models in place so people can practice quickly. And we actually have to listen to the experts in the field, like Dr. Jane Philpott, who has pioneered the periwinkle model in Eastern Ontario and is now doing that across. Let's find those ways. Let's see how we can expand practices for nurse practitioners so we can take the strain off the system. Let's use common sense approaches from those who are already doing the hard work to make the healthcare system better for everyone.
Kevin?
This will be tough because I've only got a minute. We are the party of universal health care. We've driven the largest expansion of Medicare in a generation. We force the Liberals, we drag them to universal dental care, pharmacare. They're going to roll back pharmacare, but we've got some diabetes medication and and all the pills needed for birth control. We also want to increase transfers to the provinces by 1% and streamline the process of bringing U.S. doctors into Canada. Now, we know we have international doctors here who can't get licensed. We want to fund 1,000 residencies each year for qualified international doctors to get them up to speed on how we function, as well as proposing a pan-Canadian licensure, which means doctors can work across the nation. and we're going to help them reduce paperwork. Doctors spend far too much time doing administration work, hours and hours a week that they could spend with patients. We want to take that off their plate. So we've always been a party that believes in looking at it nationally for everyone,
And that is
universal.
Our next question is, although housing is a provincial and municipal responsibility, how will you tackle the problem of homelessness in our riding? Please provide specifics. David?
Homelessness is a serious, serious problem. As a member of the Stratford Public Library Board, I've seen libraries become more operational outside of the traditional librarian services and supporting the community in ways that they were not originally intended. We need to have more affordable homes. And I mentioned before about the plan to build 500,000 homes per year, which is the most since World War II. But in addition to having affordable homes, we need to understand that there's important social problems, or certain social programs that need to support mental health and addiction for those who have obstacles to overcome.
John?
So at the federal level, we need to start having programs that actually cater to the unique challenges faced by smaller towns, rural communities, where they don't have the same resources available to larger urban centers. Too often when the government comes forward with programs, they're designed for large urban centers and don't meet the unique needs of small rural communities. We need to make sure that when we do these programs, they're designed to actually address the needs of smaller communities. I want to talk a little bit about addiction, because addiction is mental health, and mental health is health. We propose 50,000 new funded spaces to help Canadians who are struggling with addiction, basing it on results that we've shown across the country. The Bruce Oak Memorial Recovery Center in Winnipeg is an amazing example of a facility that helps Canadians, into recovery. They have a proven track record, and it's a lot longer of a stay and a lot longer of resources to ensure that the recovery can last, that the recovery isn't just a period of time, but it's a continuous thing. So let's focus on those important issues.
This time. Kevin?
Yeah, it's a very complex issue. Federally, we need to partner with the experts, which are a lot of the NGOs on the ground doing the work. You know, here in Stratford, there's a lot of great resources and non-governmental organizations that are supporting our unhoused and people with mental health problems. Now, federally, if we were in power, we would propose a universal mental health care so we can support. At the municipal level, we want to partner and fund a 360-degree support. So we're helping unhoused people get into a place to stay with supports when they need it immediately. It needs to be a housing-first approach. If we had the opportunity as your government, these are our priorities. This is what we care about the most, taking care of our vulnerable and lifting them up. We believe that that makes us all stronger. And I can't stress this enough. This is what we believe in, and this is what we do best.
Wayne?
Homelessness is a very, very complicated issue, and it boils down to the individual. And that's where our faith community can really help out with usually people are not accountable, and that lack of accountability brings on a lack of social interaction. If the faith community can reassert its position in society, we can see a better level of individual accountability and take the pressure off the government. I think we need to stop relying on government for this and rely more on our communities themselves. Thank you.
Our next question is, one of President Trump's complaints has been the restriction on dairy imports. Is your party prepared to negotiate the supply management system with him? John?
No. We've been very clear that that's not an option, not on the table. What we saw with President Trump is he likes to talk a big game, but then you look at the U.S. Farm Bill, which subsidizes American farmers to the tune of multiple billions of dollars each and every year. So Trump needs to get his facts straight before he starts looking at Canada. We need to ensure that we protect food sovereignty here in Canada. We are one of the most fertile regions here in the country. We have the best farmland literally anywhere in the world here in Perth, Wellington. We have the most dairy farmers anywhere in the country. We have the most chicken farmers anywhere in the country. We're in the top for pork and beef in the top 5 or 10 provincially and federally as well. We are literally the strongest economic agricultural superpower here in Perth, Wellington. We need to ensure that our farmers have the resources necessary, whether it's through increased processing capacity, whether it's through increased trade routes through the Asia Pacific and the European Union. But we have the ability to be an agricultural superpower. We just need to make sure our farmers have the resources to do so.
Kevin?
I'm going to agree with my colleague, Mr. Nader. I don't know that his leader feels the same way. But it's great to hear that Mr. Nader is on board. No, we are not going to negotiate supply management. That we're very clear about that. It's not on the table. It doesn't need to be on the table. Just because someone else wants it doesn't mean we have to sit down and negotiate over it. No, that's our food. We have the right to food sovereignty, food security, to control our resources that way. So, we need to open up our European markets, and we need to open up our markets interprovincially. But no, supply management will never, never be on the table in an NDP government.
Wayne?
Supply management is a form of socialism. Socialism is really bad for a country. Laugh all you want, but the reality is one of the most profitable sectors of farming is the hog industry, and there is no supply management. We have innovative farmers. We have very well, we have the best farmers in the world. Why can't we? Why do we need to protect them? They can compete internationally and compete very well. As far as the supply management is concerned, it's a layer of bureaucracy that the farmers have to pay for, and the consumers have. As a result, the consumers are exposed to that layer of bureaucracy as well. There's more viable options than supply management, and I think that it's important for our future farmers as well. Thank you.
David?
Well, I appreciate the reference to Mr. Donald Trump, but you really can't trust anything that man says. You have to play the Canadian game for Canadians. Mark Carney has clearly said supply management is off the table, period. But there's more to farming and agriculture than supply management. We also have to build more domestic food processing capacity, and that's how you get food sovereignty and how you get a security for Canadians, feeding Canadians. In addition to that, for farmers, we need to make it easier for the young farmers to get into agriculture by increasing loan guarantees to $1 million and extending the terms to 5 to 10 years. We need to look after our agriculture industry in Perth, Wellington.
Moving on to our next question, what incentives would your party offer to assist businesses to transition to clean energy options? Kevin?
Yeah, we have a, let me just pull it up. We have a retrofit plan. One of the biggest polluters in the country are our homes, our buildings, our factories. Our retrofit plan is going to go after 3.3 million homes, which will increase jobs. It'll create an industry. But what it will do is lower energy bills by about $4,500 a year per household and create jobs in that field. So that is our plan for that. Thank you.
Wayne?
If we go back in history, the primary source of power was muscle power. It took Isaac Watts in the 1800s to develop the steam engine, and we eventually developed the internal combustion engine, and we've sort of peaked out with our energy consumption. But the reality is in a spectrum like this of available energy, we're maybe looking at that much energy that we can actually use. What we need to do is we need to develop and encourage technology that can exploit a larger spectrum of the technology or of the energy we have available. Thank you.
David?
So we have removed the carbon tax on small polluters. We had to do that because everyone agrees that's not the way forward. The way forward is not to ignore the problem. The way forward is to make sure that all the businesses, all the small polluters have options that are appropriate to their circumstances that allow them to fight climate change. So a Carney government will make sure that we have the right incentives to the small polluters so that they can choose how to decrease their carbon footprint.
John?
So I believe the question was, how would we help small businesses make the transition? And one of the ways we can do that is through incentives. And so we propose to expand and enhance the clean technology and clean manufacturing tax credits so we can make sure that investments are made here in communities like Perth, Wellington, small businesses, medium-sized manufacturing technology that's done here in our communities has an incentive to do so. That's something that can be done easily and quickly and have a financial incentives for small businesses in our community to make the transition to different technologies and at the same time making it financially viable.
Our next question is, to what extent do you support retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods and services? Wayne?
We don't, period. The tariffs are a tax on the American tariffs are a tax on the American customer. What we need to do is we need to either find a market for our products or be 25% more competitive in the American economy. Now, our dollar is fluctuating and the markets will balance out, but no, retaliatory tariffs are just it's a no gain, no win. It's like a gnat biting a cattle beast. It's just like we're just not going to win. So why play the game? Thank you.
David?
We didn't start this war, but Canadians always stand up when we have challenges in front of us. We have to respond to Trump in the way that's appropriate for Canadians to look after Canadians first. The way to respond is certainly with tariffs, and then we need to do more. We need to be building east-west. We need to be doing that within Canada, and then we need to be exporting Canadian products to Europe on the east, to Japan, South Korea, and Australia on the west. I've worked in a business where we sold Canadian products around the world, high-tech, high-value products. I know we can do it. We don't have to rely on Donald Trump and the United States.
John?
So the Trump tariffs are unjust and unjustified, and we need to respond. But we need to do it strategically so that we have the maximum impact on the American government and as little as possible on the Canadian consumer. So we need to target goods that we can produce here in Canada, goods that we can grow here in Canada, or goods that we can source elsewhere, whether that's through the European Union or through the Asia Pacific. For auto tariffs, if Trump's going to tariff the auto industry, which is frankly going to hurt his own automotive sector in the United States, then we need to retaliate to promote the Canadian auto industry. So we propose cutting the GST for as long as the auto tariffs are in effect, cutting the GST on new Canadian-built vehicles so we can incentivize Canadian industry, Canadian automaker, and make that work. At the end of the day, we need to make sure that the consumer is being looked after here in Canada. And one quick note, the agriculture industry is doubly hit when it comes to tariffs because especially in the pork and beef industry, they're actually paying the tariff when they go into the United States because the ownership structure crossing the border. So beef and pork farmers are paying twice.
Kevin?
Yeah, they need to be very specifically targeted tariffs, and they're used as a tool to back off the tariffs that we're receiving from the U.S. So we use them as a weapon. They're not an economic plan. We don't want to use them, but we do believe we need to have targeted tariffs. But then we believe that we need to take every dollar from those targeted tariffs and support the impacted workers in the steel, aluminum, the auto and agriculture industries. We believe we need to cut off critical minerals to the U.S. That's a strong message that we send to them to have to force them to back off. We also believe in a plan called Build Canadian, Buy Canadian, where we alter our procurement and prioritize Canadian companies. We prioritize union jobs, so all federal vehicles must be Canadian vehicles, more Canadian content requirements in all publicly funded infrastructure. We want to be punitive with any company that received public money and decides to leave and they want to asset strip. We will not allow that
That
at
is
all.
time.
Thank you.
Our next question is, if you win your seat, but your party does not form the government, how will you become an agent of change for this riding? David?
I already am an agent of change by standing up and running for this position. I've had great conversations with people from Perth, Wellington, from St. Mary's to Stratford to Listowel to Arthur to Mount Forest to Drew at the very north of the riding. Every conversation I've had builds this community. Every conversation these gentlemen beside me have has built this community. So you don't have to wait to become a member of parliament to build the community. You talk to your neighbors, you talk to your friends, you find places where you have common ground and you agree, and then you also find places where you agree to disagree and do so respectfully. That's how we build this community. You don't need to be a member of parliament to do that yourself.
John?
For me, it doesn't matter what side of the House of Commons I sit on. My priority is and always will be the people of Perth Wellington. So when I go to work every day, it's how do I improve the lives of the people who live in this community? And then I find ways to make it happen. And it means working with colleagues on all sides of the House of Commons. It means working through committees. It means having private words with ministers immediately following question period or during votes, have those advocacy for the important things that happen here in Perth Wellington. And it's but using the committee structure where you have a small number of members of parliament from all parties where you can work together to find solutions to some of the issues. I had some great privileges of working on different committees, including the Canadian Heritage Committee, where we as a committee worked across party lines to hold Hockey Canada to account, to see that they were held to account for the absolutely horrendous way that they handled allegations of sexual assault within Hockey Canada, including seeing the entire board of directors and the CEO being fired from that organization. It was the right thing to do.
Kevin?
I don't know if you're aware, but the NDP has never formed government. But, yet, until this moment. But we have been incredibly effective at serving Canadians. And that's consensus building, bridge building, that's bipartisanship, that is putting Canadians first. And for me, I would put Perth Wellington first. The people of these communities, our farmers, our auto industry, small business, our arts industry. All of these things are something I would advocate for and build bridges, have discussions, cajole, force, pressure, pester until they hear the concerns and needs of Perth Wellington. And that's my pledge to you.
Wayne?
We can be very thankful for the wisdom of Canadian voters for not allowing the NDP to form government. Although we didn't do so well under Mr. Ray, but that's a different story.
I've never said anything mean about you.
You're asking a very speculative question, and I guess the question is will we play nice in the sandbox? I guess I just proved that I tend to hold my own, and I tend to hold my opinions pretty strong. So. That's up to you to determine if I'm going to play nice in the sandbox or not. Thank you.
Our next question is, I have heard the suggestion of having oil storage and transportation from Church Hill, Manitoba. Do you support oil tanker traffic through our Arctic? This is a fragile environmental area. How will you protect it with environmental regulation? John?
So we need to look at all options. We need to ensure that we find ways that we can get good oil from the western provinces to Tidewater The easiest way to do that is through a national energy corridor, an area that is done pre-assessed through environmental measures and negotiations with Indigenous communities through which this corridor will pass. We need to ensure that we can work with Indigenous communities as equity partners, so that Indigenous communities can actually receive the profits of some of these projects that will go through the National Energy Corridor. That's the way we can do it. We can do it through ways where we can pre-assess and quickly approve projects through areas that have already been established.
Kevin?
Energy corridor sounds so benign. No, as I said, we believe we need to be in the process of weaning ourselves off of that. So increasing traffic in the Arctic is not on the agenda. The agenda is to bolster our Arctic and care for it. It's been sorely neglected under previous governments. We want to reinvest in the north by building housing, supporting our Canadian Rangers up there, increasing the armed forces presence, giving them raises, taking care of them up there. So we have northern sovereignty. The idea of turning it into a trade route with more oil tankers is not something that is on the NDP agenda.
Wayne?
Well, after the last question, I tend to align with Mr. Kruchewicz. Unless we can assert our sovereignty, that's a mute question, and that's the bottom line. We have to assert our sovereignty over the Arctic, or we have no say over who transports what through our Arctic Ocean or through our waters in the Arctic. So we have to assert our sovereignty. We have to increase our defense spending, and we have to be diligent with it. Thank you.
David?
So Mark Carney has announced the comprehensive Liberal approach to make Canada the world's leading energy superpower. This approach will be defined by 3 objectives: energy security, trade diversification, and long-term competitiveness. We need to work with the provinces and the territories to build out an east-west electricity grid, and in this particular case, potentially through the Arctic, if it makes sense with the provinces, and access to affordable, reliable Canadian electricity, not just rely on the oil that we have in the past. These measures will ensure efficient processes under the Impact Assessment Act that can be focused on Canadian competitiveness of Canadian industry.
And our next question is, can you please explain your party's belief on carbon tax? Why has the carbon tax suddenly been removed by the current government? Kevin?
We believe in removing the consumer carbon tax. It's been too punitive, it's not effective. But large industrial polluters, we believe strongly that it is an effective tool to help regulate their emissions. We also propose a cap on emissions, something with a bit more teeth than what we have, obviously. And obviously we're not in favor of sort of expansion of large polluters like the oil and gas industry. Thank you.
Wayne?
We are opposed to the carbon tax altogether. I like to have a definition of Mr. Kruchewicz's definition of polluters. Anyone that, or any facility or any institution that puts carbon into the atmosphere is not a polluter. Carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It's a part of our atmosphere, and it's a required part of our atmosphere if we plan to eat, because that's plant food. Yeah, as far as the carbon tax is concerned, I think it's a cruelty tax, especially for Canadians, because we live in with the technology and the environment we live in, we're dependent on carbon fuels. So, thank you.
David?
So the carbon tax was removed because the people of Canada wanted it removed. Gas prices have gone down. It's increased affordability for an average Canadian. However, that does not remove the problem of climate change. It has to be addressed seriously, and we need to have effective programs that give incentives rather than a tax in order for people to do the right things. and that includes both on the consumer side, but also on the large industrial polluters. And Wayne, polluters are the industries that put carbon into the air. That's just how it works. And we need to make sure that we have a proper transition from the existing old energy infrastructure to a new clean energy infrastructure.
John?
So we will actually get rid of the carbon tax. Right now, the carbon tax is still on the books. The legislation is still there. Temporarily, the tax has been set at 0, but that doesn't stop any future government from changing it. We propose to actually eliminate the legislation, reverse the legislation, take the carbon tax off for everyone for good permanently. Why? Because it hurts people, especially in rural communities like ours. It hurts the senior who's on a fixed income, who has to pay it to heat their home. It hurts the farmer who has no option other than to use natural gas or propane to dry their corn, dry their grains, heat their barns, greenhouses in the Essex and Leamington area. I had farmers send me their bills from this fall with tens of thousands of dollars just in carbon tax, with no way to mitigate that. There was no option. That is why this carbon tax needs to get rid of for good permanently, because it hurts the people in rural communities like ours.
What are your thoughts about raising the retirement age? If you were to raise the age, what would it be? Wayne?
Well, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon, so and I'm pushing that retirement age. So, what would it be? I think it's up to the individual. I think if you've worked hard and you have the resources to retire, then I think good on you. One of the issues that we have in this country right now is inflation, and the People's Party of Canada is proposing a 0% inflation, which will ensure resources available into our old age. So I think that retirement age is suitable the way it is, but it's up to the individual, like I say. Thank you.
David?
So it's a great question in the sense that it's probably directed not towards Mark Carney, the Liberal Party. We have no plans at this point to be doing anything with the retirement age. I think you may want to ask my friend John here what his ideas are on it. Thanks.
John?
Happy to address that. So Pierre has been very clear when we announced our seniors platform that we will enhance and maintain the age of eligibility for old age security, guaranteed income supplement, and for the Canada Pension Plan at age 65. We've been very clear on that. But let's talk about how we can support seniors more broadly. We are proposing to allow an extra $10,000 of tax-free earnings for seniors who choose to work past retirement age. We also propose to change the rules around RRSPs being converted to RIFs by expanding that by 2 years. We also have to make sure that we are allowing seniors to retire and live in comfort and in decency in the retirement years. So let's make sure that we have an economy that supports that we're not nickel and diming our seniors each and every day by the constant threats of carbon taxes and threats of inflation.
Kevin?
We believe it should be 65. We don't want to raise it. We believe in bringing a national senior strategy to the table to make sure that seniors' health care is a priority. We want to reduce isolation and tackle seniors' poverty. We want to raise the guaranteed income supplement. We want to double disability. We want to take the profit out of long-term health care. We want to make sure that we're building accessible, affordable homes for seniors that aligns with our national rent control plan so that everything stays affordable for our seniors. And we want to make sure that we are ending pension theft by making sure that seniors' pensions are at the front of the line if and when corporations fail. They are the first to be taken care of. Too often we see our seniors falling through the cracks. It's the social services that get cut first when big government starts talking about austerity. We want to make sure that our seniors are protected and cared for first.
It's time. And how do you distinguish between big polluters and the consumers who buy their products? An example would be Shell oil or fertilizer costs. David?
A reasonably simple answer is big polluters are polluters that have 50,000 tons of carbon emissions or above.
John?
Well, it's still the consumer who pays, and that's the reality. Whether it's done through the consumer carbon tax or the industrial carbon tax, at the end of the day, it's the consumer who pays, and that's the absolute reality of it. It's the person who's filling up their gas tank. It's the person who's heating their home, heating their barns, drying their grains. Regardless, that works its way down to the consumers. So we need to focus on technology to improve that rather than punitive taxes.
Kevin?
Yeah, we need to incentivize moving over to newer technologies, greener technologies. Obviously, we have the numbers that say this is a big polluter, this is a small polluter. We want to make sure we're investing in these technologies, though, so we don't trap those in between, like our farmers, who are trapped not being able to pass along the cost, and we're paying tens of thousands of dollars a year because they needed to run their grain blowers, and they needed to, they had no other options to change their technology. So the Liberal government trapped them inside of that carbon tax. We need to make sure that that's not happening, that we are giving incentives and options to these middle-sized industries. As far as big polluters go, we need to incentivize them to move on to newer, better technologies.
Wayne?
First off, we have to stop with the rhetoric about polluters being carbon producers. Carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. Pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere is not going to harm us. It's not going to irrevocably alter our climate, and it's not going to irrevocably alter our greenhouse effect on this planet. Like I said before, water vapor is the greatest contributor to greenhouse in this planet. Carbon dioxide is necessary for plant life. It's necessary for our food production, and it's actually proven to, well, greenhouses increase their parts per million, 1,000 parts per million, I think, in their greenhouses to encourage plant growth. So no, carbon dioxide, we need to get off this rhetoric, and we need to start talking facts and stop with this fear-mongering. Thank you.
Our next question is a housing question. What commitment will your party make to ensure opportunities for multiple providers, such as nonprofits, housing groups, or shelters, to assist them in providing family-friendly rental housing? John?
We absolutely need to incentivize that. We need to work with community groups that are already doing a lot of the hard work to make that happen. But we need to make sure that the programs we set up at the federal level are actually designed for small, rural municipalities like ours. What we've seen time and time again from this current government is that communities like Stratford are lumped into the large urban stream. Well, that's bad enough, but Perth East, with Milverton as its largest urban center, is also lumped into the large urban municipalities stream. North Perth, Atwood, Listowel, Moncton is considered large urban municipality under the government's housing programs. So when we're talking about these programs, let's just use a bit of common sense, and let's actually have rural small town communities lumped in with that, where we can actually have meaningful partnerships with the third sector, with municipalities, to actually do things like affordable housing, attainable housing, and projects that are already underway locally, and invest in those rather than being silly with these ridiculous completely ridiculous streams that the government currently has.
Kevin?
Yeah, part of our plan is to partner with NGOs and co-ops and indigenous communities to build affordable housing on viable federal land. We want to partner with communities because communities know their areas the best. We will have the funding, we'll bring in resources and know-how, but we're going to listen to the experts on the ground in their communities, what's needed most. Multi-use units, rent-controlled units. We really believe that approaching the rental market first is going to help stabilize the entire market. So our approach is to step in there and become a governmental landlord that will make sure rents are controlled, that we're responsive, that there's no rent evictions, that there's no sudden hikes in rent. That way we can make sure that people are taken care of in all of our communities.
Wayne?
I think we need to address the elephant in the room first, and that's our immigration. Over the last 10 years, we've seen a 30% increase in our population. That means that there's a stress on our housing by 30%, there's a stress on our infrastructure, there's a stress on our health care. It's across the board. We need to stop our flagrant misuse of our immigration. The People's Party of Canada would impose a moratorium on immigration until we started to get our house in order. Thank you.
David?
So certainly we will be working with local municipalities, local organizations to have a rental supply that meets the local needs here in Perth, Wellington. But you also have to understand that rental prices are also a factor of how many homes have been built. So as part of the below market affordable housing, we need to have investments by the government as a developer to build more affordable homes, and that will certainly be impacting the rental prices. If the housing market works better, the rental prices will come down, and we need to be respectful of markets when they work, and when they don't work, the government will be a developer.
Our next question is, reflecting on how the COVID-19 pandemic was managed/handled, was there any lessons learned on how the government handled matters? Examples being vaccine mandates. If or how would things be handled in the case of another similar event by your government? Kevin?
That's a pretty big hypothetical question to sort of tackle. How will you handle a new global pandemic? We would believe that we would need to take care of our people first, and that would be, see, what kind of pandemic would it be? Are we not allowed to mix and mingle? Well, then we would need to support, or do our businesses need to be shut? Yes, we would need to support. Once again, we put ourselves in the same situation where we need to inject cash into our economy and into our people to make sure everyone's okay. I mean, it's a bit of a trigger question because they throw out the word vaccine mandate. So that's a bit of a hot button topic. It's been really politicized. Yeah, we need to listen to our experts, our scientists first, and not denigrate their expertise. Follow the science. The science will be ever evolving in a new global pandemic. So day to day, we follow what the experts say and follow best practices and make sure that everyone is inoculated if need be, and make sure we're not making each other sick.
That's time. Wayne?
Very interesting question. I'm a bit of a historical buff, and I've always been fascinated as to why a civilized country such as Germany would fall into the hell that it fell into under the Nazis. And I discovered the reason why through COVID. Mass psychosis. No one would listen to reason. The masks that we were supposed to wear, you might just as well put a chain link fence up to keep mosquitoes out. That was the proportionality of the virus versus the protection. The mandates on the vaccine, like that was absolute dictatorship. Like that attacked the sovereignty of our own individuality. I can go on, but I'm running out of time here. Thank you.
David?
So the global pandemic was very unfortunate, and many people lost their lives, and we cannot forget that. And we don't want that to happen again. I agree with Kevin. I think we need to pay attention to the science, and we need to be following the science when it comes to a proper health response. It is tough. We don't want seniors to be affected, or anyone to be affected by mass death. Having said that, you also have to recognize that there's an economic cost that comes with the protection of vulnerable people. So we do need to look at medical sovereignty so that we have the right equipment and the right vaccines and the right supplies if something unfortunate like that happens again.
John?
So part of the question was about lessons learned, and one of the things that really laid bare during the pandemic was how precarious Canadian supply chains really are. It was a reevaluation of the need to build things and make things in Canada once again. Over the last number of decades, under multiple governments, we have lost that capacity to manufacture things in Canada, whether it's hard goods or whether it's the biomedical community. We've lost that capacity. So one of the greatest lessons learned, I think, is that the need for us as Canadians to stand up once again and reinforce the need for us to build things, make things, and develop things here in Canada, whether it's pharmaceuticals or whether it's actual resources and goods and services here in Canada. So let's take that lesson lesson out of the last 5 years and actually have a meaningful conversation about how we make things here in Canada again.
With all the cuts, with all of the tax and GST cuts references tonight, how will you replace the government dollars lost there? Kevin?
One of our big approaches is to remove the billions of dollars. The number I have is 18 billion, but I believe it's higher, of subsidies to oil and gas industry. That money can be put to use in reinvesting in our workforce, in our own industry, instead of sort of giant tax breaks and subsidies to big oil and gas. So we look at paying that way. We look at closing loopholes on the top 1% earners, tax havens. We may have a leader here of one of these parties who has a tax haven offshore. We want to bring that money back. You shouldn't be able to, just because you're rich and you have a good accountant, you shouldn't be able to move your money offshore. It's money you've earned here on the shoulders of working Canadians. It should stay here in this country. You should reinvest it here for us. And we don't want you to pay more taxes if you're a multimillionaire. Just pay your fair share.
Then it's time. Wayne?
Unfortunately, for the last 10 years, our government has spent money like a drunken sailor. The debt has run up. There's a lot of a huge lack of accountability for the monies that have been spent. They're hidden, and we're not able to see the full extent. I'm hoping a change in government will expose just how badly we've been managed over the last 10 years. But we need to get our house in order, and that from my perspective, if I were Prime Minister, I would go to every government body and say 25% cut, figure it out. And I think we can do that. I think there's enough fat in the system to be able to cut at least 25% out of it. Thank you.
David?
So I'm going to come back to the word I used before, and that word is balance. When you cut something, you have to have the right balance. But cutting something doesn't necessarily mean that you have to reduce expenses over time if you have a growing economy. Mark Carney understands that. Mark Carney understands that it's not a matter of cutting taxes and then cutting services. It's a matter of cutting taxes that incentivize the right behavior to produce a growing economy. One of the things that Mark Carney has also said with respect to the economy is it's not just a matter of doing the same old thing. We have to be more productive as Canadians. One of the advantages the Americans have is their productivity is higher than Canadians. We need to figure out the right incentives with taxes in order to get the economy to be more efficient and more productive, and then you get growth, and then you get to be able to spend it on important social services and putting more infrastructure in to invest in more growth after that.
John?
So I'm actually going to build on something and agree with something that Kevin said. Let's stop the tax havens. You know, if someone in this room tried to avoid paying their taxes, CRA would be on you. I see people who come to my office who have collection notices for $200, and CRA is on them, hounding them for those $200. If you have a couple $100 billion offshore in Bermuda, like a certain business, well, have at it. Well, we got to stop that. We've got to stop that, crack down on those who are moving money offshore for their own personal and financial and business needs. Let's make sure that Canada is receiving those tax revenues, and let's make sure that Canada is a place that we want to reinvest in. Let's make it a tax system here where we have Canadians who are reinvesting their dollars here in Canada, building economy here in Canada, creating jobs here in Canada, rather than sending the money to the tax havens like in Bermuda.
Given the shifting global political and economic landscape as a result of the trade war with the United States, what does your party intend to do to continue to make housing affordable for all Canadians? Wayne?
I've always maintained that we're a relatively small population on one of the largest land masses in the world. We're the second largest country in the world. We have huge land resources. What we need to do is figure out how to use them, and use those resources for our young people who want to build a home, build a life, and build a place where they can raise their families. We can't rely on the southern parts of our country anymore. That's our food source, and we have to feed our people. So we have to look at opening up and developing lands further north, and developing lands that people can grow and raise their families on. Thank you.
David?
So if I understand the question correctly, I think you were talking about the global trade disruption and then how it affects housing, which are somewhat independent of each other, although there could be a connection in this way. Canada has always been a country of immigration. People want to come to Canada. This is good for the country with an aging population. However, it's important to make sure that we have limits on immigration so that we don't affect domestic issues like housing affordability. We must look at the numbers of immigration and find the right balance, and unrestrained immigration does not work.
John?
So we've already addressed a few of the things that the Conservative Party would do, including the GST off of new builds, the development charges decrease. We also need to incentivize purpose-built rental housing, especially in communities like Stratford. I hear from many people, especially working in who are new to the community and aren't quite ready to buy a home. They also want the option and the option to afford an affordable rental housing. One of the things that each and every meeting I've had with the Mayor of Stratford has talked about the Cooper site. And I think that is an option here in Stratford where we have land right downtown Stratford where we can have meaningful housing projects. One of those things that I hope to see there, and something that I've spoken with the mayor a lot about, is how do we make sure that we have rental housing there for those in the community right downtown, whether it's seniors, whether it's young people, whether it's young professionals, whether it's first-time people getting out of the house. Let's make sure there's a whole variety of housing there for everyone in the community to have a place to live here in Stratford and across Perth County.
Kevin?
There's a lot on our plan about building new homes and freezing development costs and stuff, but I want to talk about our rental plan. We want to rework the Public Land Acquisition Fund to invest $1 billion over 5 years to acquire more land. And we're not talking about conservation land, greenbelt land, anything like that, but viable land that isn't farmland, for rental units. We want to get into the business. There's not enough mechanisms to demand that develop 30% of your income. So we believe we need to get involved to help, because nothing is changing. So if the government gets involved, builds affordable, Canadian-made rental units, quality units, and we can be the landlord. The government holds the land, receives rent, but takes care of the renters, rent control. And then we can start directing funding so that we create a national rent control across the board, which will incentivize municipalities. Thank you.
And we are coming actually to the end of our time here this evening as well, so we are going to go to closing statements. We will do them in the opposite direction as how we did the opening statement, so we will start with you, Wayne. And I'd like to thank everyone for their questions tonight as well. Any that didn't get asked, we are hoping to get those out to the candidates and hopefully post answers for those as well. Wayne, go ahead.
Well, I really thank you for being here. I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. I'm Wayne Baker. I'm the candidate for the People's Party of Canada for this riding, and the People's Party of Canada is founded on 4 basic foundational principles. That's freedom, responsibility, fairness, and respect. And that's what we need to build our country on. We need to, we're offering Canadians a real principled alternative. What you're seeing here is the merging of 3 parties to my left, to my right, and I'm standing out as, some might say radically different. We're not a right-wing party, we're a centrist party. Our country is leaning very strongly to the left, so relative to the direction our country's going, we appear right, but we're not. We want what's best for our country, and we want what's best for you as our citizens. I mentioned earlier that I place the supremacy of God, and I believe in a country that believes in this or respects the supremacy of God. As your representative, I would put the best interests of our country next, followed by which would naturally follow into the best interests of the people in Perth, Wellington. As far as the party, it's at the bottom of the list as far as I'm concerned. It's God, country, people, or constituents. Thank you.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce for putting on this event. Aaron, thank you for moderating. It's a great opportunity to talk with all of you, everyone on the other side of the camera as well, and to engage with my fellow candidates. I want to take a moment to thank the gentleman sitting up here tonight. So whatever your stripe and whatever it is that I think of your politics, I want to thank you for standing, for keeping us all engaged with the democratic process. So thank you, gentlemen. Listen, keeping a progressive voice in our government is a necessity, just as necessary as a voice from the right. We need these voices to test and challenge our ideas. Too much of one, too little of the other, and we get pulled off the path, and that's when we start to lose people. They start to fall through the cracks. The NDP is a voice for the working class and the vulnerable. We are a necessary voice. And on April 28th, I encourage you to vote Kevin Kruskowicz and the NDP. Thank you.
John?
Elections are about the future, and we have to ask ourselves, after 10 years of this Liberal government, do they deserve a fourth term? Do you feel safer and more secure today than you did 10 years ago? Do you feel that our country is stronger and more prosperous than it was 10 years ago? Do you believe that our children's and our children's children will grow up in a Canada that is going to be more prosperous and more unified? For the people I talk to on the doorstep in all communities across Perth, Wellington, they don't feel optimistic. They don't feel optimistic after nearly 10 years of this Liberal government. But I do hear hope. I see hope for the future in our community. I am committed to help bring that hope to each corner of Perth, Wellington. It's why I go to work each and every day, to represent the people that I have the honor to serve. I make one simple but fundamental pledge in each campaign, that I will work hard for every person in every community in every corner of Perth, Wellington. That's my commitment to you, and that's what you get by voting for John Nader. You get my hard work and my dedication to our community. After the election, it doesn't matter who you voted for. I will serve you to the very best of my abilities each and every day in Ottawa. This is an important election, and I hope you will go out to vote. Advance polls open this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's Easter weekend. That's a good thing or a bad thing, but the advance polls are this weekend. So I do hope that regardless of who you vote for, you make the effort to go out and participate in our civic duties. I am honored to stand as a Conservative candidate here in Perth, Wellington, to earn once again your support to serve as the Member of Parliament in Perth, Wellington. My name is John Nader, and I would be honored to have your support in this upcoming election. Thank you.
David?
I started tonight by saying that we need to elect competent politicians. I ask you, when you look at the stage tonight, who do you feel will best represent the people of Perth Wellington in these turbulent times? And which candidate has a leader you can trust? Pierre Poilievre does not have a plan. He only has slogans. He only has American fear and paranoia. Do not be confused. We have seen this playbook before. Slogans and gimmicks don't fix complex systems. They don't protect farms, and they don't protect the people in Perth, Wellington. A vote for John Nader is a vote for Pierre Poilievre. We know this because John has voted with Pierre Poilievre at every turn. John voted against pharmacare. John voted against dental care. And he voted against giving more money to your healthcare system. Do you believe that John and Pierre won't cut funding to these essential services in your future? However, it's not all bad. Remember, there's good news. We have superpowers. We can vote. We can stop this nonsense together. I have business experience in management working on complex systems, and have been delivering world-class Canadian products to customers around the world. I have public service experience in library and internet sectors. And I also have the rural values of working hard and giving back to the community. A vote for me is a vote for Mark Carney, a competent leader you can trust in this strange and unstable time. This election is different. The choice is clear. Use your superpowers wisely when you vote on April 28th. Thank you.
I again would like to thank all the candidates for taking the time to take part in this debate, and the audience as well for taking part in this dialogue and bringing those questions forward. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors in the room that have helped to power this event. It's incredibly important that we can have these areas where we can converse with each other. We invite the candidates and everyone here to stay and chat going forward, and I hope you all have safe travels on your drives home as well tonight. And please get out and vote and make an educated vote, hopefully now with more information to go about that. Thank you very much and have a great night.
David, just up.